I'm not even supposed to be here today. 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 Oh, fuck you.
Mike Cyber Radio. We're about to start the show. We talk about stuff and things. Lots of guests in depth interviewing. Mike Cyber Radio. It's nobody's favorite show. Movies, comics, video games, and TV. And we also can guarantee that it's not gonna be that funny. But that's okay because the show is free. So crank the volume into your headphones. The podcast at last is starting. It's time for Mike Cyber Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Mike Cyber Radio. I am your host, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Clerks 3. Now, I had the opportunity to watch the movie, but not only that, I had the opportunity to watch the movie as part of the live roadshow extravaganza, the Convenience Tour, hosted by Kevin Smith. I saw that at the historic Neptune Theater here in Seattle, so I am going to talk about that. I also have a guest stopping by later in the show. Camaro Kev from the Stack of Dimes podcast is going to be stopping by, and he saw it as part of the Fathom Events screening, so we're going to kind of compare and contrast our movie-going experiences and kind of our overall thoughts on the film. We agreed on a couple things. We disagreed on quite a few things, so it'll be an interesting conversation that I think that you'll enjoy and will give a little more texture than me just kind of rambling here by myself. So just to kind of let you know about how this episode is going to go, kind of like the rhythm and cadence of what I'm going to talk about. This entire first portion here, you're still in the safe zone. If you have not seen Clerks 3, you're fine. This entire first portion will be completely spoiler free. The next portion of it, when Camaro Kev stops by, is going to be super spoilery. We're going to talk about the major plot beats and events and outcomes of the movie. So, but you'll have plenty of warning and plenty of opportunity to punch out before you have the movie spoiled for you. And then the last portion, kind of like part 3, I guess, in this trilogy, as it were, is I'm going to talk a little more about the actual Q&A session with Kevin Smith that occurred during my going to the Convenience Tour at the Neptune. I did record a little bit of bootleg audio, so I'm going to share a couple clips from you. Not much, because quite frankly I recorded it on my phone and the audio quality is not very good. And nice lady, the tour manager, actually came out at the beginning of the show and said, please don't pirate the movie and please don't pirate the Q&A. So I'm going to stay respectful of that, but I'm also going to do some light journalism, and I will share a couple clips for you that I think there were a couple things that Kevin said that really resonated with me personally, and I thought sharing the audio with you might be a little more resonant than me describing it. So that's kind of what's happening on this episode of Mike Cyber Radio. But as we're talking Clerks 3, as with any movie, or as a lot of these review shows that I do go, we always start with the question, who is this for? So in this case, who is Clerks 3 for? Well, it's for me. I've been a fan of the works of Kevin Smith for quite some time, since I was in high school. I think, if I remember correctly, think my first encounter with Kevin Smith's work was actually Mallrats. I think I had, I was into Mallrats first, and then it's like, oh, he's got this whole other movie, Clerks, that, you know, I checked out, and, you know, was monumental and influential in a number of ways. I've talked about the profound impact and influence that Kevin Smith has had on me, one, as a fan of pop culture stuff, but even now as a creative, I seem to continue to draw inspiration from him, as well as being entertained by the stuff that he puts out. So this Clerks 3 is definitely for me. I feel like it was made personally for me. Like Kevin came to my house and, hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith. You like this stuff? What can I do for you? What can Clerks 3 do for you, Mike Seibert? And I told him, and that's basically what is on the screen. I don't know if this is spilling up too much into my review or whatever, but I really liked the movie. I appreciated the movie, and I'm a fan of this movie. So just to get that out of the way before we really get any further. But who is this for? In addition to being for me, it is for fans of Kevin Smith like me. So it's for me, but it's also for folks like me. But no, I think fans who have a connection to these characters and these situations and the movie Clerks and the View Askew universe and the overall oeuvre of Kevin Smith, I think will be very satisfied with this conclusion of the Clerks trilogy. And I do actually kind of want to talk a bit about kind of Kevin Smith fandom, because like I consider myself to be a quote unquote super fan. However, I don't consume everything Kevin Smith. Like I'm choosy with the podcast, and in fact, I don't know if this is going to get me thrown out of the Kevin Smith fandom, but I haven't even seen all of the movies. There's a fair amount of TV stuff that he's done that I have not watched, but even having not consumed all of the material, and even then, there's of that material that I don't like. Even then, I still consider myself a super fan. So that being said, who is this movie for? I think it's for super fans, but I do want to talk about a little bit. I was in a group text with some friends of mine, and I had just dropped in there. I'm like, oh, by the way, I saw Clerks 3. It rules. I really liked it. And then one of the guys in the group text had asked, well, hey, I haven't seen Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Is it worthwhile? And to which one of the other folks in the group text said, well, if you have to ask, then that's your answer. And there's a couple things to extrapolate from there. I don't think the intention was gatekeeping per se. I think it was more to the effect of like, with Kevin Smith stuff, as polarizing, especially as his new material has been, you're either in or you're out. And it sparked this conversation about, well, even though Kevin Smith's recent material, he makes movies having fun with him and his friends, and the movies are for him and his fans and his friends, that kind of thing. But the perspective was brought up of that rationale being used as a shield for criticism, which I think is a valid thing to say, but I both agree and disagree with that, because really, as the discourse continued, it's like, well, I'm asking if it's worthwhile. You're saying, if I'm asking, then I already have my answer, with the implication of, well, it's Kevin Smith stuff. If you have to ask whether you need to watch it or not, you're asking the wrong questions, and it's probably not for you. Which, again, I'm way paraphrasing here, but I think that can be reductive. But I also think that you can be a fan of somebody and not blindly and voraciously consume everything. So when I say that this movie, Clerks 3, is for the fans, I mean that it's for the larger swath of fans. I think it's for, I think it is for Kevin Smith superfans that have consumed everything and just nom, just devour everything Kevin Smith. But I also feel that this is for casuals and for lapsed fans. Like, you know, maybe you liked Clerks, maybe you liked Mallrats, maybe you liked the 90s stuff, but then you dropped off into the 2000s and have no time for Red State or Tusk or Yoga Hosers and don't do any of his podcasts or whatever. But you're like, oh, hey, I liked Clerks 2. I'll give Clerks 3 a day in court. I think those folks will be satisfied as well. So I do admire and respect Kevin Smith's I don't give a fuck attitude with regards to trying to appeal to a larger mainstream audience. I think he has tried that a few times throughout his career and has varying level of success. But I think where we are now in pop culture, with there being so much content everywhere, I think the way to stand out is to appeal to the base, as uncomfortable as that might be. So I think that the trajectory of Kevin Smith's output has been focused towards folks like me, and perhaps being his outreach to lapsed fans, or even now, especially with kicking off with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, I think really kind of trying to catch that wave of 90s nostalgia. Now, speaking very briefly about Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and the Reboot Roadshow and all of that, because, like, you know, this is kind of the second post-heart attack movie that Kevin Smith has made, and there's a lot of thematic connectivity between Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and Clerks 3. But I think that Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is zanier and sillier and wackier, whereas Clerks 3 is a bit more earnest and is a bit more grounded. I think grounded is the term I was looking for, even more so than earnest. So what I would say to my friend in the group text that asked if Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is worthwhile, it's fine. I had an absolute blast watching the movie as part of the Reboot Roadshow again in a packed crowd again back at the Neptune with that live Q&A with Jay and Kevin, and it was it was a great time. Just the raucous crowd and really treating a movie like a rock concert, which is a weird phenomenon. But if you're in that crowd environment with a couple sodas in you, with like-minded fans just like you, it's an incredibly good time. But then when the reboot came out on Blu-ray, I instantly pre-ordered it, got it, watched it, and it's fine. I kind of soured on it because divorced from that crowd environment, it was a little hollow, and I think some of the novelty had kind of worn off. But I think that's because specifically the type of movie that Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is. Clerks 3, on the other hand, is, in my opinion, a very different movie. Now, you've seen the title. You know what the title of this episode is. Clerks 3 Made Me Cry. And I will get into that a little more when I talk to Camaro Kev in our guest segment and kind of be more specific. But the thing I think that fans of Kevin Smith's more zanier stuff, the Jay and Silent Bob things, and comparing and contrasting it with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, is that I think folks forget that how serious and dramatic Kevin Smith's work can be. You know, there are parts of Chasing Amy that are kind of retroactively problematic and maybe don't hold up as well. I mean, there's other stuff too, like parts of Mallrats don't hold up, and this, that, and the other thing doesn't hold up. It's like you look past the nostalgia, you look past your recollection and memories, and it gets a little shaky. Clerks, on the other hand, has always been solid. And there's a kind of lightning in the bottle texture to it. But I think what fans forget sometimes is that at that movie's core, it's a movie about relationships, and there's a certain degree of existential dread to it, and there is angst and, dare I say, ennui to it. There's there's an earnestness to it, and of course you have all the jokes and all of the references and everything that we love about Clerks. But I do think sometimes we forget, especially in the wake of Clerks 2, which was really kind of like a wacky adventure. I think in the Q&A, Kevin Smith referred to it as Clerks fan fiction, where basically the studio gave him $5 million and he just came up with a Randall and Dante adventure whole cloth that wasn't based on any of his experiences. And I think where Kevin Smith's material is the strongest is when it's at his most authentic. So, Clerks the First is really kind of based on his early life, literally working at the Quick Stop, whereas Clerks 3 kind of comes back around, closes the loop, and really says a lot about where Kevin Smith is today. It's kind of like the tale of two Kevin Smiths. It's like you have the 23-year-old Kevin Smith that made Clerks, and now you have the 52-year-old Kevin Smith that has come back around, both figuratively and literally, in Clerks 3. Now, I do kind of want to talk about like some of the, I guess I would say, impressions and expectations going into the movie, especially coming off of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, because it's like, he has the heart attack and has this reawakened attitude of, I'm living on borrowed time. I want to cross off all the stuff that I never got to do. So that's really where Reboot comes from, and then by extension of that's kind of where this iteration of Clerks 3 comes from. And I say this iteration because there was a version of Clerks 3 that was going to happen, coming on almost 10 years ago, that was violently different. And at the end of the day, Kevin Smith is grateful it didn't come to be for a variety of different reasons, because he wrote that the original Clerks 3 kind of in a similar space that he was in when he did Clerks 2. It's like, we'll just, make this another adventure for Dante and Randall, and almost the way he kind of approached Clerks 2, where it wasn't from an authentic place. So I think with Clerks 3 being post heart attack and kind of where he's at headspace and where his philosophy is, I think it makes for a better movie. The movie has a lot of soul to it. It has heart, and it's also incredibly funny. It has references upon references. It has updated versions of a lot of the classic Clerks bits, and it's, again, I've talked before about legacy sequels, and this feels like a right and proper legacy sequel where it's reverent to the original. It touches on the original, and in a lot of ways, I don't think this is a spoiler, but in several ways recreates the original, where kind of post Randall's heart attack. I mean, Randall basically has Kevin Smith's heart attack and then decides he's going to make a movie, and that movie is Clerks. So that's kind of the narrative thrust of the entire movie. But with that narrative structure, you get to revisit Clerks in new and exciting ways that I think fans will find very rewarding and very satisfying. I know I did. But I lost my train of thought earlier. I was talking about like initial impressions and expectations. I didn't know what to expect when that first trailer dropped back in July. It was like it wasn't the overwhelming feeling of holy crap, I'm in. It was like, okay, that's a thing that's going to happen. I mean, I almost should have done a reaction video to watching the trailer, because it was kind of a roller coaster. I was like, okay, I'm in. Oh man, I don't know about all this. Okay, I'm in. Oh man, I am out. Oh man, I'm back in. Just kind of really just up and down and up and down. And even so, when the showtimes were coming out, I really wrestled with not if I was going to go, but how I was going to watch this movie. So when it was announced, it was the Convenience Tour Roadshow was announced, but also the Fathom Events screenings were announced. So it was always presented as an either-or type of situation. I know folks in other parts of the country don't have that opportunity. Shoot, and even in other parts of the world, my buddy Greg can't even watch the damn movie because obviously there's no road show. Kevin Smith isn't going to take the movie to Australia, or at least right away, and Fathom Events isn't a thing there. So really, I don't know if it's until it drops on VOD in October. I don't think Greg's going to be able to see it for at least another little bit. I'm looking at the calendar now and realizing that October is really not all that far away. But I kind of feel bad that, like, in a sense, I had the opportunity to bitch about having a choice about how I wanted to watch the movie when I have friends that can't watch the movie in any capacity. So that privilege isn't lost on me. But nevertheless, I did have that choice of like, well, I could go to the Fathom event screening, or I could go to the road show. And I started looking at tickets for the road show, and I found myself immediately disappointed and a little crestfallen. Obviously, inflation is up. I'm not going to get political or, say like, oh, let's go Brandon, or, any of that other false narrative nonsense. But when I went to the Reboot Roadshow, I got what I would consider to be very good tickets, paid just over $100, I think. And for that, I was like in row 7, maybe row 8. Very good seats. And it was considered part of a quote unquote VIP package. And in this VIP package, I got a good seat, a laminated lanyard that allowed me to get through the line early, but then also an autographed copy of the bound script for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, signed by both Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes. And, plus you get to watch the movie, you get to watch the Q&A. Very satisfied with my purchase. I believe there was even then a additional add-on to where you could do like photo ops or meet and greets or whatever. And I wasn't interested in that, because even a couple years ago that still felt like a little crass, a little cash grabby, and quite frankly, it was off the table for me because I didn't have the time since I was coming straight from work. So I could virtue signal all I like, oh, that's too expensive, and end of the day, I prohibitive price or no, I wasn't going to be able to do it. So the convenience tour becomes available for me, and I'm pricing out seats, and I go to look in the same area that I sat before. So, it's the exact same venue. It's the historic Neptune Theater in Seattle. Great place to see a live show. I've seen bands perform there. I've seen movies there. It's, I've seen stand-up there. It's a great room. But I'm looking in the same spot, and I see that literally my same seat costs $150. And I'm like, youch. Well, that better include, if not a blowjob, at least a handy or something. And sure enough, it's just the seat. So no VIP access, no autograph script, no merch, no tchotchkes, nothing. And then I start seeing the VIP add-on package, and that's like literally an additional $150, and or maybe one was 100, the other, but again, it's like you getting into like meet and greets and photo ops and all of that stuff. That's where you get like autograph scripts and other tchotchkes, and it felt weirdly cynical to me and really kind of crass cash grabby, to the point where I was like, nope. I think I tweeted at the time, I was like, today was the day I chose not to spend $150 on a Kevin Smith show. And though I didn't buy tickets for the Fathom Events either. And one thing that I guess I should make clear also, and this is, the privilege of being in the Seattle area, when Fathom Events comes around, there are so many movie theaters that there's no degree of difficulty. So even when I went to go see Transformers the movie or G.I. Joe the movie or any of the various Star Trek movies, I could just walk up to the box office and get right in. I don't want to say they're poorly attended, but I think it's because there are so many theaters spread out so far over the greater Seattle metro area that, the opportunities are plentiful. So it's not like something you have to get in on early. So I didn't. And months pass. Time passes. And it starts getting closer, and for the Seattle leg of the show, there were 2 showings, one on Sunday, September 25th, and then Monday on the 26th. Wait a sec. I'm sorry. I'm telling the story wrong. The Sunday show sells out almost immediately. And then, much like when they added the second show for the reboot Roadshow, they added a show for Monday the 26th. There's a part of me that thinks that that was the plan the whole time, but perhaps that is just me being cynical. But anyway, so the Monday show becomes available, and I'm faced with that same choice again, and again I pass. Though I do start paying a little more attention to other seats outside of the more expensive early rows, and I noticed that up in the balcony and farther back, those tickets cost $37. So, it's a much more reasonable price point, but you're further up, you're further back. And then I start doing that cost analysis. It's like, well, I can spend $37 for a balcony seat and still get the movie and still get the live Q&A, which I do want to participate in, or I can spend $20 and just watch the movie, probably by myself, probably in an empty theater. So even then, it took some discussing. I had to talk it out loud with my wife, and she's like, the choice seems obvious. This seems to be a no-brainer. I'm not even sure why you're agonizing on this. And I bought tickets right there. And just so I bought a ticket for myself. I went by myself, but I was going to save this for the other side of my conversation with Camaro Kev, but it's on my mind now. Had a terrific seat. I was on the front row of the balcony. So, but still an incredible view of the movie, incredible view of the Q&A. In fact, actually, I would probably say that it was probably even better for ideal movie watching than being on the floor than when I was for the reboot Roadshow. My only minor complaints, and this is just kind of a hell of my own making. One, I'm generally an aisle guy. I have the bladder of an infant, so it's like I generally have to go to the bathroom often, regardless. Maybe I'll get that looked at one of these days. I don't know, but because of the how long I had waited, in fact, I might have even bought, quote unquote, the last seat that was available. Like there was, so I bought the seat that I bought, and I think there was one seat in the handicap spot that was $100. So I think I got the last balcony seat, but it was in the middle of the row, and it was a little cramped. It was a little tight. And, when you go to the bar, you got two hands, so you can buy two drinks, and I bought two drinks, and, yeah, that was maybe a little too much liquid. So by the time the movie ended, I really, really had to go to the bathroom. So, but anyway, that's all just my poor decision making. Maybe I should have nursed that Rainier Tall Boy a little longer than I did. I kind of lost track of what I was talking about here. The reactions to the movie, I thought, I've made my decision to watch the movie in the theater. After all, I've gotten over my crass cynicism, because I had heard on a podcast, I think it was Fat Man Beyond, where he was talking about, because like some people were being shitty in the chat saying like, oh, hey, the seats are so expensive. And Kevin kept talking about these $37 seats. So he's like, what are you talking about? It's so expensive. And even at the time, I talk to my podcasts sometimes. You might as well, but I was telling Podcast Kev, I was like, you do realize that there's a significant price hike between the reboot Roadshow and now, and those seats that I think people are complaining about really are quite expensive. But that being said, $37 for a 2-hour movie and a 2-hour Q&A, to experience that in a raucous crowd environment, was an incredible experience. And so as much as I got my money's worth the first time around for Reboot Roadshow, I got my money's worth even more so this time around for the Clerks III convenience tour. So anyway, the movie comes out, and I lie low. You know, I'm not clicking on hashtags. I'm not actively looking for reviews, but inevitably, because it's the internet, you come across discourse, and I came across two things right off the bat, and this is really what kind of cemented my perspective on the movie going into it, in terms of like whatever, solidifying my expectations for what I wanted out of Clerks 3. I saw that critics were not really into it. I saw some pretty mean-spirited, provocative headlines for reviews, but then I also saw, coming out of the Fathom Events, that my friends who are like-minded and Kevin Smith fans like myself liked it quite a lot. I saw at least a half dozen tweets from a half dozen of my friends, and so for me, that dichotomy was just what I needed. Okay, the critics might not like it, but the people that I trust, that I know, and that I know have similar tastes, if they like it, that's the least that I can hope for. Because I guess in a sense, in terms of like, you know, recalibrating expectations, the least that I expected is that it wouldn't be bad. You know, and that's the only, it doesn't have to be good. It just doesn't, it just has to be not bad, if that makes sense. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well made. The performances are really good. Brian O'Halloran, oh my God, just gives a performance as Dante that you simultaneously expect, given the previous movies, but there are plenty of surprises in that performance as well. And everybody is terrific as well. I mean, obviously, Jeff Anderson as Randall, owns that role thoroughly, and it's a lot of fun. But I think the thing that resonates with me the most is the authenticity, and in that, like, you write what you know, right? And Kevin Smith taking the convergence of his post-heart attack outlook and combining it with his experience as a filmmaker and a content creator, and being the guy that made Clerks, found a way to mesh all of those things together and really make a wonderful film for us fans and for me. And the last thing I would say, like, I don't know if I'm still in the Who Is This For chapter, but I've said who this movie is for, but I think more than anything, this movie is for Kevin Smith. And that might sound odd, because it is self-indulgent, and I think he takes his criticism and shrugs, and it's like, yes, of course. So again, does self-awareness shield you from criticism? Possibly not. But I will say that the movie is very self-indulgent, very self-referential, but I think it also will resonate with fans, and it certainly made a lasting impression on me. And I think after you see the movie, and if you know me, I think you'll start to understand why. I did also want to talk about, and I'm kind of all over the road, but one last thing I wanted to touch on in terms of like Kevin Smith influence, and specifically Clerks. not only was it the movie itself, the jokes, the pathos, all of that, it was also the soundtrack, which ironically enough was a Miramax thing, and it's like the movie is bought and it's going to be cleaned up and rolled out into theaters and ultimately home video. But so there was a deal with Sony where they basically, and it reminds me in a lot of ways about the soundtrack to Transformers the movie. I'm not trying to strain and reach and connect Clerks with Transformers the movie, because there's very little connection there. But I haven't done a movie ranking in a really long time, because I don't know what's below Transformers the movie, but Clerks is definitely there in that top 5, along with Wrath of Khan. But the thing that do connect. Well, no, it doesn't connect. Never mind. They have a similar story. So the soundtrack for Transformers the movie was populated by Scotti Brothers artists, artists that were on Scotti Brothers records, including Stan Bush and Weird Al Yankovic and all those other folks. Conversely, the soundtrack for Clerks was populated with a bunch of Sony bands that they were just trying to make happen. But there was one band in particular that it ended up being my first exposure, and that band was Bad Religion. Now, I talked about this in my Bad Religion episode I did with Taryn Daly a couple years ago. But for me, I think Clerks is foundational for my sensibilities, clicking with my sense of humor and all that, but also hearing that band, it's like, their song Leaders and Followers plays over the aftermath of the funeral scene. They, Dante and Randall go to the funeral home, knock over the casket, and Bad Religion's Leaders and Followers is the song that plays as they're fleeing, as the angry mourners are going after them. But I just remember hearing that, and it just grabbed my imagination. Like it's a magical thing discovering a new band. And while I was a huge fan of The Offspring at the time, for some reason that hadn't quite crossed over into Bad Religion. I was too busy listening to more mainstream rock radio, and I think I was just listening to the wrong radio station. I think the end would have been more fit for my sensibilities in the mid 90s rather than KISW. But anyway, it's just like, and that set me on a different path. So I'll always associate my affection and fandom for Bad Religion as connected to the influence and fandom of Clerks. So to me, it's kind of like a double whammy of I don't know. Just, when you're in high school, you come across foundational works, and longer story shorter, that just kind of became foundational for me for a couple different ways. Before I get into the spoiler portion with my guest Camaro Kev from the Stack of Dimes podcast, I want to talk a little more about Kevin Smith coming to town, because on Monday, so he did 2 shows. He did a Sunday show and he did a Monday show. Monday morning, he went out to a video store, a brick and mortar, honest to goodness video store called Scarecrow Video in here in Seattle, and I've been there a number of times since I've moved further away. I haven't been to Scarecrow in a number of years. In fact, I haven't been there since after the pandemic. But it is a honest to goodness video store, kind of. I don't know if it's world renowned, but it's certainly nationally well known as, like one of, holding the torch for independent video stores. And it was going to Scarecrow Video where I actually saw the Japanese Laserdisc for Transformers the movie for the first time. The one that's black and white with Unicron in the back and Rodimus Prime, in an action pose. Just stark black and white. I had never seen anything like that before. I had no idea that Transformers the movie was on Laserdisc. So anyway, I used to rent stuff from them all the time. That's where I kind of got into like some of like the John Woo stuff. In fact, they had a copy of The Killer on DVD that you had to put a deposit on. So they had like a lot of like rare and unusual stuff, but they have their movies categorized in a number of different ways. They have it by genre, but they also have a director section, and basically, so Kevin Smith rolls into the Scarecrow Video and decides to do a video of it. I don't know if it was live streamed or if he was just recording it, but basically, hilarity ensues when he goes to the director section and looks for the Kevin Smith section. And I'm actually just going to drop the audio right in here. It's pretty funny. Give a listen.
Look at the fucking time machine, kids. Behold, how many titles you guys got?
140 plus thousand.
Jesus. We're at Scarecrow Video. What's your name, Captain?
Jamie.
This is Cine East's heaven, it would seem.
It is.
Now I'm going to ask the question. There's a director section over there.
There is.
Am I a director?
You are a director, friend. There is not a Kevin Smith section. I apologize. It's Sunday morning. It was supposed to be put in last night.
Wah, wah. They got Ernest Lubitsch. Francis Ford Coppola. Sophia. They got all the Coppolas. Not Kevin Smith.
No section. Still all your films. Still all of your films, all of them. We still have them.
That's true. No Kevin Smith films are here, but Kevin Smith is not recognized as a director.
But entertaining postscript to that story, shortly after that video dropped, Scarecrow Video, well, I guess it would have been the next day. Maybe this would have been Tuesday. I don't remember. But Scarecrow Video put up another tweet. Kevin Smith stopped by while in town promoting his new film, Clerks III. He found out we didn't have a director's section for him, and we felt like jerks. To thank him for visiting, here's a section of not only his work as a writer-director, but also as an actor. Enjoy. And I think for in my opinion, they went too far the other direction, because instead of some of these director sections are only like a couple shelves or maybe even like a shelf. They made a whole goddamn end cap of Kevin Smith movies, and it's got all kinds of stuff, a lot of like his CW stuff, all the movies, his live show stuff, and with a placard that says Kevin Smith is a director, and it tells the story how Kevin Smith stopped by our store when in town, found out we didn't have a director section, we felt like jerks. So here you go, literally the same text as the tweet. But it's interesting though, looking at the shelf, they also have a super rare copy of the 2-disc special edition of Dogma, and I remember having a conversation with a buddy of mine at work about I'm like, oh man, that's super rare. You got to put a deposit on that. And it's like, really? Yeah. I mean, because it's out of print. And after doing a little bit of deep diving, apparently the rights to Dogma don't lie with the Weinstein Company or former Miramax or whatever hedge fund ended up with that whole catalog. Apparently, Harvey Weinstein himself from prison personally owns the rights to Dogma. So, apparently Kevin has tried to appeal, even using legal means. I think there's a lawsuit. I don't know all of the ins and outs on it, but apparently that's why nobody owns the rights to Dogma. That's why it's not on any streaming platforms, and that's why it's out of print. So it is available on Blu-ray, but apparently this 2-disc DVD, which I have, is apparently quite valuable on eBay, and it'll set you back a little bit of a deposit to be able to rent it from Scarecrow Video. But yeah, I guess that's kind of enough preamble. That's some of my thoughts on Clerks 3. I, again, bordering on repeating myself, I really enjoyed it. And I think if you have any affection for this universe, these characters, and specifically this run of movies, as I said, I think it's for fans that are into the zany Jay and Silent Bob stuff, but I think it also appeals to, like, let's say you've only seen Clerks 1, maybe seen Clerks 2. This will work for you also, but I think it also fits very nicely in the overall canon of Kevin Smith stuff, and it will remind you that the dude can write drama and angst and relationships, and more than anything, dialogue. I wish I had said more of that up top, but you forget how effective Kevin Smith's written dialogue is, and this is I can't speak any more of it, but or speak any more highly of it. I can and will speak more of it. So coming up next is my interview with Camaro Kev from the Stack of Dimes podcast. We're going to move into the spoiler section, so this is your spoiler warning. I'm going to play some audio here in the middle just to kind of also give a clean separation. In fact, actually, I'm going to play the trailer for you because I think that will actually kind of set the tone, set the scene for this next movement of the podcast, as well as being a plenty spoiler cushion. So if you have not seen Clerks 3 yet, you can go ahead and punch out and come back after you've seen it. And then after my discussion with Camaro Kev, it's going to be a little more discussion and analysis from me, but also I'm going to kind of get a little deeper into some of the things that was discussed during the Q&A, and I'll share a little bit of bootlegged audio with you, and you're listening to Mike Seibert Radio.
That's how we did it in the 90s, son!
Can't catch my breath, man.
Really? Should I try mouth stuff?
What is this, a Tinder date? Get off of me. Shit.
Mr. Dante!
I need an ambulance at the Quick Stop.
Saved my life, man. Wish I had a life worth saving.
What are you talking about?
Sit around and watch the same movies over and over.
I always thought you could have made a cool movie.
You're right. I'm living on borrowed time. No more watching movies.
I'm gonna make a movie! What's the movie gonna be about?
It's about him working here.
Meta.
Everything in the script is something either me or someone I know said.
I'm not even supposed to be here today. Maybe Jay and Silent Bob could be characters.
Jay and Silent Bob are like C-3PO and R2-D2. They've been here since the first movie, which was the last time they were cool. But they've been with the franchise so long, they still give them cameos and put them on the lunchboxes.
Snifty Booches! Please tell me why.
I believe in you.
You put in that stuff you used to say about the Death Star contractors.
Get sued by Disney? No way.
Now that's what I call acting!
Take off your pants.
What the hell is this?
I added a scene where you get shot.
I'm not letting you kill me off in the third act. What if there's a sequel?
A sequel? What am I, a hack?
Hey, welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio. I am your host, and it wouldn't be a conversation without Clerks III, without my special correspondent joining me here in studio, my hetero workmate from the Stack of Dimes podcast. It's Camaro Kev, aka Thunder.
Yo,
how we doing, buddy?
I am all right. All right. You went to the big to-dos last night. I went to a Fathom Events of this Clerks 3 nonsense. A week
Yeah,
back?
like a week ago.
Yeah.
So I waited for the convenience store. Store? Well, it is a convenience store.
And that thing's called
Convenience tour.
Convenience tour.
So that's the big deal where, the Kevin Smith comes out, he does an intro, and I think he's gotten his regional stand-up routine dialed in because he comes out and does all local stuff. So he comes out and tells a story about going to the SeaTac Mall. It's like he before he went to film school in Vancouver, he had like an aunt and uncle that lived in Federal Way, and he always remembered going to the SeaTac Mall. So he talks about
Does the SeaTac Mall still exist?
No, but that's part of the story, ironically enough, because he wanted to. I don't know where he was staying because he mentioned about it being like in the suburbs or something like that, but apparently he was close enough because it was 2 nights. It was Sunday and Monday.
Oh, okay.
So it was 2 days of the convenience tour here in Seattle. But he was close enough to Federal Way where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Federal Way and check out the SeaTac Mall. And he looks for it and he can't find it. He's like, what the fuck is the Commons at Federal Way? That's not a thing. So he goes there, and I don't know if you've made it down to Federale Way, Felony Way.
Other than driving through or past, no, I've not been down to a Federal Way in a long time.
It's the Commons of Federal Way, formerly SeaTac Mall, is a husk of its former self. There are literally no anchor stores anymore.
Which is like pretty much most of these malls anymore are just husks of themselves that may or may not have some weird, odd local shops in them and maybe a major retailer if you're lucky.
Yeah, the anchor is now Target. Well, I guess there's a Kohl's there too, but Macy's is gone.
Yeah.
Sears is gone, and everything in between. Like, I mean, there's no corporate stores. Well, there's a GameStop and a Bath and Body Works, but anyway, so he tells the story about like going to like a hat shop, and dude wears a backwards baseball hat all the time. So he basically bought out this story, bought like a couple dozen hats and like hat holders and all that. And I remember that store fondly. I used to live in Federal Way, so I've been to, in fact, my wife and I still go to the movie theater there, the Century at Federal Way. That's our theater. But anyway, it cracked me up. I'm like, I know that hat shop, and he's like, oh yeah. And then I went around the corner to Zoomies, and they got jorts in my size, so I bought a bunch of jorts from the Zoomies. But anyway, so he's doing like all this local content, and just the whole crowd's like just eating the shit.
That's
up.
Pretty good. That's pretty good actually.
It was really good stuff.
Was it Lids that he went to with a Z?
No,
I'm kidding.
No. It was that would be the corporate version of the hat shop.
It's a local sort of hat shop.
I think it's called the Hat Stop.
Oh,
and it's
clever.
like a stop sign, and it's got a hat next to it.
Okay,
but yeah, very very local, very independent. So basically, he comes out and does a little bit of intro bit, and then they show the movie, and it's funny because like so the movie was at the Neptune Theater, same place as the Jay and Silent Bob reboot roadshow, which was last time you and I talked on a podcast together.
Wow,
at least on my show. And Well, we keep thinking 3D will never die, but we'll get to it eventually.
It hasn't died yet. We do have plenty to talk on that if we ever get around to it.
We'll get there, my friend, I'm sure. But anyway, they show the movie, and it cracks me up because like they had a pop-up movie screen set up for it, but when they hit play on the movie, you know how like when you're watching a Blu-ray and like the little play arrow icon comes up, you could see it in the top left corner when they started to play the movie.
So that is like a at-home laser projector almost that had a Blu-ray player hooked up to it.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe he's got a copy of that 4K that I just pre-ordered, that Best Buy Steelbook.
Sharp-looking Steelbook. Real nice looking. Anyways, sorry.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, I brought it up, so.
Yeah.
But no, I thought that was very interesting. It's like, it's a exhibition of a movie that we're just hitting play on a Blu-ray.
Which you can't blame them. Like, if you're going to go to the Neptune, which I would imagine no longer has an actual... I mean, that was a movie theater, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Or it may be old enough to be where it was like a vaudevillian theater that then turned into a movie theater, but now is turned back into a stage theater, but then also sometimes needs to show movies again. It's
exactly. In fact, one of our coworkers here shared with me that he and some buddies of his, college buddies, saw Clerks at the Neptune when it was a movie theater back in 1994.
Oh, that's nuts! Because you
think about that.
You just jogged my memory. That's where I saw Boogie Nights.
Oh, get out of here!
It was at the Neptune. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, totally forgot about that.
So a lot of history there, and in a weird way, it kind of comes back around. So the movie plays, and then he comes back out and does Q&A. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with a Kevin Smith Q&A, but basically, like, so I mean, it's like a Comic-Con where they set up like a microphone in the middle of the aisleway, and folks can line up.
I cannot stand that stuff, by the way.
It's usually really lame.
It really, it tests my patience.
Mm-hmm.
I've only been to a handful of things that have that. I actually, Jerry Lewis, before he took a dirt nap, came down to the Emerald Queen Casino and performed, and he allowed that to happen. And so it was all these,
oh my gosh,
all these people crying to Jerry Lewis. It was, anyways, it's brutal. That stuff's brutal.
Yeah.
It's very brutal.
I'm not a fan.
Neither am I.
And it's interesting because, like, I think Kevin Smith has gotten savvy to this in his older age, because he's like, you're going to hear a whole lot of A and not a lot of Q. I wouldn't have, you folks lined 20 people back, you're not getting in. It's like, so sure enough, 4 questions.
Yeah.
And he went about as long as the movie is. The movie's just under 2 hours. It's an hour and 50 minutes.
I'm surprised at that, actually, because it did not feel that long to me. Have to say.
It moves.
Yeah, it moves pretty good.
It's at a decent clip.
If you would have told me it was just over 90, I would have said, yeah, that sounds about right. But just under 2, I'm surprised.
Well, and I thought that's what it was, too. It's like, so I saw 140, and I thought it was an hour and 40 minutes. No, it's 140 minutes, which is an hour and 50 minutes. I think if I got my math correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was, and I think it's because of the type of movie it ends up being. So, I gotta say, first of all, and this is the spoiler section, so we're just going to talk about everything freely from this point forward. You either seen it or you don't. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, just to make things logistically easier, because like I listened to a couple podcasts where like they're very short. Like it's some dude talking for 20 minutes saying like, okay, well, I can't really spoil anything, but I like the movie. Go check it out. But I am
essentially what I said to you.
Exactly what you said to me, and you saw the movie a week before I did,
yep.
And even then, that was still several days after it came out during like this extended Fathom Events thing.
Yep.
I've never seen a Fathom event go like 2 weeks before. That's wild. They keep adding showtimes to it.
But it was just 7 p.m. at these theaters for this amount of time. So it was pretty convenient, but I'd never seen that either. Usually it's a Fathom Events thing is like 1 day or 2 days and that's it.
Yeah.
But this one's like consistent, like you said, for 2 weeks. But one showing at 7 p.m. no matter where you were at. So, anyways, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Kind of odd.
But so I managed somehow to not have a single thing spoiled for me. And there is plenty in this movie that's like important plot points that are super spoilery.
I was surprised. I was totally surprised when I asked you, like, I'm not going to tell you anything about it after I saw it, but I'm like, have you heard anything? I thought for sure it would have come across your landscape at some point. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked that you made it this far without having any of that stuff ruined.
Yeah, because you had even asked me straight across, like you just said, it's like, do you, and I'm like, naively, I'm like, well, is there stuff to spoil? And you're like, I can't answer that question.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Which there is, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Tons.
Yeah.
I mean, to say nothing about the entire third act of the movie, but fates of like all of the characters. There are plenty of spoilers to be had there. At this point, I've had at least a half dozen friends of mine see the movie, and like they've put out tweets about saying like, how much they liked it and all that, but still, even then, not even a whiff of how things transpired. I had beers with a buddy of mine last weekend, and I'm like, hey man, I'm going to the live show on Monday, and he's like, oh, you haven't seen it yet? And I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, I already saw it. It's phenomenal. But again, he didn't tell me a damn thing about it, and again, I'm just amazed again, considering how the movie goes, that I had missed all that. So I guess before we dig into too much of that, we talked a little bit, since you had a weak head start on me. You had given me some of your thoughts. Share it with the audience. What were kind of your thoughts about the movie?
I kind of had the same feelings about the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely better. And I think I should have said maybe that, like, I know a lot of people were disappointed that Kevin Smith went back to the View Askew or whatever the hell it's called. His, like, basically back to, let's just say Jay and Silent Bob being in movies. Yeah, let's just be honest. That's what it is.
Yeah,
like, exactly. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, he hasn't grown as a director." I'm thankful that he kind of went back to this stuff, because I'm sorry, if it's not his own kind of universe material that he's created, it's not very good. Like, I know he's like created like the Yoga Hoser or the Red State and the Tusk and all that. I know he like wrote that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just not enjoyable. This stuff is pretty enjoyable to me. So I wasn't blown away by it. I told you I thought it was pretty solid. I thought it was uneven. I thought that I guess we're getting into spoilers, but I had a hard time swinging from wacky and zany to very, very serious, like covering death and stuff like that. That was, and I think some of the acting is it's a little cringy when it comes to handling that sort of stuff, because it's just. I thought the two main characters, I forget what the guys' real names are, but Dante and Randall slipping back into their little routine that they do. Yeah, I thought they were still pretty solid in Clerks 2. They're still pretty solid in Clerks 3. They are getting older. They are not actors. They are like not celebrities. They are very much an average person who keeps going back to this one thing that they do fairly well. I enjoyed that. But overall, I mean, plot-wise, the little gimmicky, hey, we've got a reason for me to throw in some of my celebrity friends, but I do it in a way that I know that they'll participate. Like, basically set up a camera somewhere that could be anywhere where they can come up and read some lines, like, which was very reminiscent of the reboot. Wasn't there a segment in there that was basically more or less
where it's cavalcade of cameos.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't blame him for doing it that way, because then otherwise he probably wouldn't get many of these cameos if he didn't do it that way. But I thought I liked it. I thought it was better than the reboot, but I'm not blown away like a lot. But then again, I also have to qualify that I'm not the biggest Kevin Smith fan. Right. I love Clerks. I had moments where I liked Mallrats, not so much anymore, and Chasing Amy, not so much anymore. Like, going back, those movies are very flawed. Clerks, I still stand by. I really enjoy the original Clerks, and I even I didn't mind some of that Dogma stuff and some of that Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I saw that in the theater, so that stuff I'm okay with. But like, I'm not the biggest Kevin Smith fan, but it was better than I thought it was going to be, but not by much. I just thought it was like pretty solid for what he's been doing recently. Yeah, I was very long-winded, but that's good stuff. But when you had seen it, and I had seen you that Monday or whatever the next day I saw you was, you had said at the time that it was pretty much dead even with the reboot, and
I was like, okay, cool. Because, like, for me, the best thing that I could hope for is that it's at least okay. That at least is like that same level as Reboot was, which I loved when I watched it with the crowd at the Reboot Roadshow with a packed house full of folks that are like-minded people and stuff like that. And I had a very similar experience with Clerks 3 here. But then when I bought it on DVD on Blu-ray and watched it, it's like I really kind of soured on it. So now my assessment of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is that it's fine. It's like it doesn't really hold up as well. But I'm glad it's a thing that exists.
Refresh my memory, but the original Jay and Silent Bob was it
the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back?
Yeah, that's the original one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember because it has a title like it's a second one or like
correct. It's the reboot is literally the same plot as the Strike Back.
And here's I guess for me in the reboot and in this, in that it's just hey, let's all reminisce about Clerks and let's all reminisce about Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back or whatever. Like, and so part of me is like, it's not really a movie. It's more of a like, let's go down a trip down memory lane. And I do think that there wasn't much there with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It was a zany, ridiculous movie in the first place. So
it's a party of sorts.
Yeah, and the reboot is in a similar vein.
Yep.
So I mean, Clerks 3 at least is more of an actual movie than the reboot. So I'll give it that much.
Yeah,
but still, it relies heavily on the first Clerks, and basically, everyone talks about it being meta and all that stuff, but it really is like, an easy way of making a part 3, I guess.
Yeah,
easier way of doing.
No, and that's fair. So, I saw it last night, and first thing you asked me, you're like, okay, I got 5 minutes before I go to taco time, just real quick. What'd you think? And I told you very earnestly, I'm like, I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I think some of it is because of the environment I saw it in. Packed house.
I was going to say that. And to the point where I will like to talk to you when you get the 4K Steelbook from Best Buy exclusively. When you get that.
This episode of Mike Seibert Radio Podcast brought to you by Best Buy. BestBuy.com for all your Steelbook needs. You gonna buy that Reservoir Dogs? We're not doing
Go ahead and load my account up with like whatever the rewards is at Best Buy. I'm gonna have someone's listening right now. It works at Best Buy and they're loading me up with like $5 rebates towards any Blu-rays, whatever. No, but it will be interesting to see, much like the reboot, if you watch it again in your home on Blu-ray or 4K or whatever, if you still have that feeling. Because I saw in a very sterile environment, maybe 10 people, including me, in this Fathom Events theater. Like maybe 10 people.
So let me briefly talk about kind of like that experience, because like, it's rowdy, especially like, you get like the opening titles and you get the hockey on the roof and you get like the gum in the door locks. And, it's like, so even just like little things, as much as like Dante getting out of his car and putting his boots on the ground, people are cheering for that. And it's a movie. We're watching a movie. It's not like it's a concert or something like that, but it doesn't matter. So, I mean, like anytime like names come up on the screen, it's like, woo, yeah. So it was that kind of environment, and that carried through, I don't know, like the first third of the first act or something like that, and then eventually the crowd kind of dies off.
You settle
in. Exactly. And I was with it until it kind of like dips a bit. I think like maybe around the Randall heart attack stuff it kind of dips, but I'm getting ahead of myself, because like one of the first things, I mean, like what the biggest shocker is, so Rosario Dawson is in this movie, but she's super dead. She's she a ghost.
I do another podcast, and JD on that podcast has not seen this movie yet. But he did say that he saw on various social medias, stuff about Rosario Dawson being a part of this thing. And all I could say is, God bless her.
Right?
She's a legit good actor.
Yeah.
She's been a part of a big Disney Plus show recently, and she must really like Kevin Smith and the whole crew around that, because she comes back and participates, and she does, and she was
great.
in the reboot, and she was in the reboot. That's right.
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. Like she, she hangs around and comes back. There are some, who left. I mean, obviously you get an Affleck in this, you get Ben Affleck in the reboot too for just a little bit. Like, but Rosario Dawson, God bless her.
Yeah,
like,
and what better character to play a ghost, because she literally does not age.
No,
I mean,
no, she does not age.
So, I mean, she looks like she walked out of Clerks 2 in 2006.
Yeah. Dante, on the other hand, I said looks like he dunked his whole head in Just for Men hair coloring.
Oh.
No. I mean, hey, look, let's just be straight here. And he's been doing that for a while, for a hot minute.
There's a clip of Clerks 2 towards the end of Clerks 3, and it's just I think he bought the box with the Asian fellow on the box. It's just like, it shouldn't be that jet black. It's like that is an unnatural hair color for a white man.
Yes, I get it, and you know what I mean. It's like you're in a movie, anyways. You're going to do all sorts of
yes,
I don't know, tricks of the trade, shenanigans,
tomfoolery,
sleight of hand to help you out. I understand it. I do totally get it. Yeah, and so, but it is quite a juxtaposition, or whatever you want to say, with Rosario and him sitting next to each other, and they were married, and she very much is ageless, and he very much isn't. But I think it was a smart way to play this.
Yes.
That I don't know. How do you write her into this after Clerks 2? And I think
that's the thing.
I think Kevin Smith played that kind of smart.
Yeah, he kind of wrote himself into a corner. Now, I do also think that it's kind of a women in refrigerator situation. I don't know if you're familiar with that trope, but basically it's female characters get killed off to propel the male character's story. That's very much a thing. It happens more than it should. But
well, I think where he really got himself in trouble was, if you watch, I haven't watched Clerks 2 in forever.
Yeah, me either.
But it was made in a way of like, this is it.
Yep.
And this is kind of his problem with this universe or whatever, is many times he's been, this is it, saying goodbye to this universe, saying goodbye to these characters, only then to come back to it. And that's a problem with that. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Clerks 2 was basically, they were getting married, or they did get married. I can't remember.
Basically, she reveals that she's pregnant, and then that kind of like propels the third act of the movie.
Okay,
and then it's like, okay,
that's
well,
right.
I'm gonna settle down, stop working at this.
There you go.
And we buy the quick stop.
I'm gonna grows up. Yeah, I'm gonna grows up, and off we go, and that's that.
Mm-hmm. And so now this movie is about what happens after, and being in our 40s, that kind of resonates in a way that I don't know if I was expecting. Like, in a weird way, I've kind of grown up with these characters. We've grown up with these characters. So it's interesting to see where they are and where we are in our lives. So I think that's some of the stuff that kind of resonated with me, that, the feeling of mortality and legacy and how you're remembered, that kind of stuff. And I think, and that's a lot of Kevin Smith heart attack stuff as well, post heart attack stuff as well. But that stuff really worked for me. It really worked.
Of course, we're in our 40s. We're going to see a nostalgia bomb that basically came out when I was in high school.
Right.
So, I mean, I get why Kevin Smith goes back to this stuff, and I understand it. And I think he would even say he's limited as a director. I mean, if you look at like his like a Cop Out and that sort of stuff, where he's trying to move on from his stuff, but only to come back to it. Mm-hmm. It's oftentimes you see like music acts do that, bands do that. They're like, we need to grow and we need to get away from like maybe some bands are known for one album or one song, but if you're known for one solid album and you never can get back to that, they try to move on, and we're changing, we're growing, we're changing with the times and all this stuff, but eventually they go back to it, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with him going back to this, and I could understand why he's made this movie the way he did, and the way he made the reboot, and catering towards his his fans. And obviously you going to see this, like you said, with all of these other fans like that, probably all around our same age range, and getting to a point in your life where you do think about things like that, like what have I done, what's my legacy, and that sort of crap. I can't fault him for that. And that's why I like seeing the reviews for this thing. Like if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, it's either it's a nostalgia bomb for his fans, and if you're a fan, you're going to like it, or this is just hot garbage, and yet again Kevin Smith is just doing the same crap with this barely there universe that he created.
Right.
There's kind of no in between, and I'm a little more in between. Like I'm not blown away by it. I don't think it's that great, but I think it's perfect for Kevin Smith, I guess.
So let's get into our main point of contention as we get ready to wrap up here, because I had 5 minutes before you ran to Taco Time to go get lunch, and we started talking about the end and the third act of the movie. And incidentally, those Rainier Tall Boys go straight through. There's like no tissue absorption, so it's like I spent like the whole, I would say maybe the last at least third, if not to half of the movie, stuck in a tiny seat in the Neptune in the middle of a row, just having to the point where like my kidneys started aching.
Brutal.
I'm just like, brutal, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And then like the plot kept happening, because you start running that calculus of like, oh, can I go now? Can I go now?
Mm-hmm.
And then
what am I going to miss?
And it's that last scene in the quick stop. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They're just doing more of replicating the movie stuff. And then Dante starts doing the dialogue from the movie, and I'm just like, oh shit, this is different. And then the scene plays out, and I'm like, and it's like, well, fuck, now I can't go.
Yeah.
So, and I was there through the end of the movie, but I didn't roll a tear when the Wolverine died. Even when like the nice little girl takes like the cross out of the ground and makes it into an X, I got like the throat lumps, but no tears. I didn't cry when Wolverine died, but I cried when Dante died.
You got a little lumpy, huh?
No, I rolled a tear.
You rolled a tear.
I legit
came down the cheek.
I was like the Native American in that commercial, just like a single tear. But no, like it was.
It really tugged at you.
It really did, and it's interesting because like I thought he was going to die at a couple different times. So I thought the way the scene was going to play out after he has the heart attack, that was just it. He was just going to be dead there on the quick stop, and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then he didn't. But it was when Randall shows him the movie, and it's just Clerks, and the throat is getting really clinched at this point, and it wasn't until the scene changes and he's watching the movie in the movie theater, and I had like my hand on my own throat. I'm like, no. and Rosario sits next to him, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, because I knew it. You knew at that point.
But yeah.
And I mean, I swear to Christ, fucking rolled a tear for Chubbly Dante.
Well, I'm not going to judge you on anything like that.
And I never would have expected that.
Huh.
I mean, it just really snuck up on me. And throughout the entire third act of the movie, I talked about how rowdy the crowd was. You could hear a pin drop.
Wow.
Just dead silent until like you can hear some sniffling. There was literally like, I mean,
wow.
I rolled a crocodile tear, but there was dude like a row or two behind me. It's like, there was. I mean, it was happening.
Yeah.
It was happening. And again, I was very surprised. I never would have thought I would have cried at a goddamn Clerks movie, but there it is. But then you, my cynical, crass friend.
I'm sorry.
Tell me your thoughts about how that.
It was just a little flat for me, and I kind of saw it coming. And then I thought, they're not really going to do that, are they? And then, yes, he is really going to do that. And I just thought like it was a little too corny for me. And I don't know, the way the Randall character is it's hard for me to swing from just kind of how crass and heartless the guy is to like swing that heavy. I mean, I don't know. It just didn't work for me. It just didn't work.
That's fair.
It was just. I know what he was going for, and maybe it would have been different if I was within a crowd of people that were like are really diehards for Kevin Smith and these characters. But I was in a cold, empty theater with like 7 other people or 8 other people, and I don't know. It's just and Dante and Randall or whatever doing their thing together is totally fine, but like Randall or them kind of acting with other like serious stuff, it doesn't work for me all that well. I think they're just it's just a bridge too far for those gentlemen, and I enjoy those guys. I think I wouldn't want them to recast or do anything, obviously,
right?
And I'm glad I'm glad he did a Clerks 3. I'm glad he brought these guys back together. I'm totally fine with it. I think it's pretty okay, but it just didn't work for me at the end.
It being defensive, I was like, yeah, man, you need to watch it with people or something. I forget exactly what I said, but it was something where it came from a spot of defensiveness where I'm just like, that's what you get for going by yourself or something.
I didn't take it that way. If that's what you thought,
that's how I felt.
That's how you felt.
That's where I was coming from.
I'm not judging. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't have that experience watching this, because everyone's different. I remember being very moved with the old man Logan.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't remember a tear coming down my face or anything, but I got a little lumpy in the throat and the eyes got watery. I'm a sucker for that, like anyone else, but it just didn't. Kevin Smith's Clerks movie just doesn't. I almost categorize that in a way where it doesn't. I can't explain it, but I can't take it that serious.
Fair
no matter
enough.
even if you try. Take me there.
And you had said, with tonal shifts and going all over the road and some of the acting decisions and things like that. How you feel about the Elias character?
I wasn't big on the Elias character in Clerks 2.
Sure.
It was okay. It was fine. It was a bit much.
I don't disagree.
It was a bit much.
I'm just glad that that Kevin Smith remembered that he's a fan of the Transformers.
Yeah.
I got 2 different Transformers references, and I'm like,
I was thinking about you when I saw when those references occurred.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I kind of didn't mind that he became a Satanist or whatever. that kind of was like a little. I should have saw that coming, maybe, but it was kind of all right.
It was silly, but it was kind of fun.
Stupid, and some of the get-ups that he was in, and then also just like having normal conversations in those ridiculous get-ups.
Yeah,
that was kind of okay.
Yeah,
but it is a bit much for me.
Gotcha.
Final thoughts. I do think this has to be it for Clerks. I mean, obviously for various reasons, but you know how things go in this day and age, and people get hard up for money, and things happen. But it's got to be it for this, right? I mean, what's?
Well, I don't know. You see the ghost of Dante at the end.
God, that's so true.
Woo! Ghost, Ghost Clerks.
Yeah,
Ghost Clerks.
Come on, do not say these things aloud.
That's true.
We might get a 75-year-old Kevin Smith who's hard up, and he's.
Speaking of, oh my gosh, I mean, so he looks great on stage. I think he's gotten his weight situation to where it's normal. Yeah, because he went the other direction. He was super skinny for a few. He's looking oven baked in the movie proper. He's got this weird tan thing.
Yeah,
it just looks weird, especially with the ill-fitting silly bob wig that I mean the coat does a lot of the work, but still it's not quite right. And how about Jay and his giant choppers? How about that? I don't know.
The guy's lived a hard life, and apparently he needed to replace the upper deck of teeth, which is very noticeable. Look, those guys are such goofy characters anyways. I mean, like you said, the wig was a bit much, but you forgive it. You're just of course they've got to be in here, and of course they're not going to recapture what it was
That's how we did it in the 90s, son.
Yeah.
I did like the, so now that they're the proprietors of a legal dispensary, they're still like doing like the deals outside.
They can't be bothered to actually like update anything in there too. They just keep going with it being this like facade of, doing deals and stuff and leaving the video cassette tapes in there and all that stuff. Like literally putting over like a banner over the top of the video store sign. That was all right.
Good stuff.
Yeah. It's still, out of all the shit, how much he's milked those two ridiculous characters through much of his catalog, right?
Yes.
Like they had no business being in Chasing Amy, right? Like, let's be honest. Like what, but God bless him.
Yeah.
Good for him. He found his one hit wonder. And, I don't, people say to me sometimes, is it sad to go and see someone like a Def Leppard or a Van Halen or, any of these nostalgia acts? I have some friends that are like, I had gotten a thing with somebody that was like, they wanted to go see Guns N' Roses, but they couldn't bring themselves to do it because they didn't want to see Axl Rose and that sort of, and I said, you know what? Eddie Van Halen took a dirt nap 2 years ago. Yeah. And I'm happy I saw all of the shittier iterations of Van Halen towards the end. I have no regrets on that stuff. So,
gotcha.
And that's my thoughts on this stuff. Go for it, man. But please don't do another Clerks. But you know what? If you want to revisit some of your old stuff, go for it, man. And you know what? I enjoyed it.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. You can catch Camaro Kev on the Stack of Dimes podcast and Kicking in Zubaz occasionally, and coming maybe never another installment of 3D Never Die on the SOD feed. Maybe we'll do that. I mean, we got that Avatar coming, so we got to talk about those naked blue cats at some point. They're coming back to the 3Ds. See, now that I'm manifesting. See, now since I'm saying it on the record, so now we have to do it.
And now it's going to become a reality. Okay.
Yep, there it is.
Yes. Thanks for having me, sir.
And thanks again to Camaro Kev for stopping by. I thought it was of value to have perhaps a bit of a contrarian opinion, and it's always good to talk about things with your friends and with other folks that sometimes may or may not feel the same way you do, but still have similar inklings. I doubt that this will be the last time that I talk about Clerks 3. I do think it'll be interesting by the time you get to see the final runtime of this episode and say, oh my God, there's still more. I mean, unfortunately, there's always more. I mean, I could probably do a whole nother episode just like on Easter eggs and references and things like that. I mean, I think I intended this to be much shorter than it's going to end up being, but as y'all know, brevity is not my first best strength. So I'm hoping that this at least kind of like touches on kind of like some of the broader strokes of the plot. But yeah, I'm sure like maybe after Greg sees the movie, we get together for Unfunny Nerd Tangent and litigate more of this there. But there were a few things. I mean, so it's the advantage of post-production where we recorded that a couple days ago. So going through and editing kind of got me to look at it with a fresh set of ears, and I did want to address a couple things. One, I didn't realize we were going to go down the road of the body shaming route, and I kind of actually feel bad about that in retrospect, and I realized that I was kind of like piling on, talking about Jay's teeth and talking about how Kevin looks, and it just I almost took some of that out, but I think that it's better to leave stuff in and then to talk about it and to have conversations rather than trying to hide it, because I said those things. And, as somebody that often struggles with self-confidence related to their appearance. I don't know if that was all in good taste for me to say. So I just wanted to be accountable and responsible for my statements. But while I'm here, before I start talking about the things Kevin talked about in the Q&A for Clerks 3, I did kind of want to come back to a few things. One notably, because I think we just kind of glossed over it in my conversation with Thunder. I had a feeling that Becky was going to either die. Well, no, I had a feeling that the movie was going to deal with her death in some way, only because Rosario Dawson is in the trailers, but she's not in the trailers a lot, which leads me to believe that she was there, but not there for an extended period of time. And I had a feeling that when folks were saying that the movie made them cry and it made them emotional, I thought that like the climax of the movie or at least like somewhere early in the movie, now I'm contradicting myself, I thought somewhere in the movie that her passing was going to be instrumental to the plot of the movie. And I will say again that I am disappointed that she got fridged. And cause I don't know what else you would do. I'm not smart enough of a storyteller to figure out how to incorporate this character, but still work with their busy schedule, but then also kind of figure out what to do with them in a plot. So like, this version of Clerks 3 doesn't happen if Dante is happy with a wife and a daughter. That version doesn't work. It really, it's the original version of Clerks 3 at that point. And I guess getting back to some of more my feelings and kind of my connection and affection for the Dante character, especially, you know, I've identified with that character quite a lot in a lot of different ways. You know, I mean, who hasn't worked any kind of job, you know, with the I'm not even supposed to be here mantra. And oh gosh, I mean, just so much of his attitude on life, especially in that first movie, you know, where basically he's a passenger and that life is a thing that happens to him rather than him making life happen. And I have found myself in that rut so many times, and even like having the lessons of this movie in a sense, like, you know, I don't have the angsty backstory that and the tragedy between Clerks 2 and Clerks 3, but like not knowing what exactly Dante's deal was, but like after, you know, in the opening credits, and he does the thing where he goes back to the counter and he slumps his head down. It's like, you know, I've in my latter adult life, I have felt that same way a great many times. I almost recorded a bonus episode of Existential Dreadcast, and because like in watching the movie on Monday and then kind of really stewing on it. Well, actually, no, I'll just do a quick Existential Dreadcast in this in this little bit before we do talk about Kevin Smith's Q&A. But like, this is probably my fourth attempt at trying to knock out this podcast. So I recorded the GUI Center with Camaro Kev on Tuesday, like while it was fresh in mind, but I knew because of the way that we talked and I felt and not wanting to do like non-spoiler and spoiler section. It's like, well, let's just talk about the movie. And I knew I needed to record some wraparounds on it, which is what you're listening to now. But I'm trying to do it Tuesday, and I was tired. I've been having a lot of, existential dread stuff and some, I got some stuff going on that's affecting my mood. The season is changing here in the Pacific Northwest. It was raining on Tuesday. I know, rain in Seattle, but it had gone from being like a nice day to like a really gloomy day, and I think that seasonal affective kind of was getting to me. So I was in a funk, and today I came to work a little lighter on my feet and in a better mood, and more importantly, I felt more energized, and that's what's motivated me to do this now. But like, I spent over an hour talking into a microphone over and over. Welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio. Today we're going to talk about Clerks and this, then the, oh shit. Just like if I had saved any of that stuff, I would probably be able to have like a 20-minute supercut of me starting the show, stopping, getting mad. And the thing that was really getting me down was that like I just couldn't power through it, and I was getting more frustrated, more upset, and I just it just wasn't coming. But one of the things that I have learned in the last couple years is that I can't force it. If it's not going to happen, the best move is a strategic retreat. Go back, regroup, try it again. And I'm so glad that I did, because that's the only reason why I'm talking to you now. This episode almost ended up in the pile of abandoned projects. I've been thinking about doing like 2 or 3 different live streams. I've got some new additions to my Lambro army. I got a few more side swipes, and I want to do a video about that. Anyway, I still want to do some unboxings and things like that. The imposter syndrome has really been setting in recently, so it's like I've just been kind of going through some stuff, but it was interesting. So I park in the garage this morning, fully expecting to do a separate Existential Dreadcast, and then when I hit record, it just wasn't coming, and I got frustrated. But then I realized it's like, oh, I don't feel that way anymore. Like I said, I felt a little lighter on my feet, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to go to work and go about my day. And when I clocked off, I was like, oh, I'm really feeling it. Welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio, and today we're going to talk about Clerks 3. And I wasn't expecting to talk for an hour, but that's just kind of where it took me, kind of where this has taken me now. This has been a little more, I don't even know what to say. Not meta, but insidery, or just breaking the fourth wall, I guess, or whatever. But that also reminds me of something that I was going to talk about, one in the Existential Dreadcast, but also as a companion to the Kevin Smith stuff, because one of the things that I identify with regards to the Kevin Smith's philosophy of doing content for himself and his friends and his fans, that's really the groove I've really sat into with this podcast and talking to you. I, over time, have dabbled with and coveted the idea of crossing over to a wider audience. Like, if this is your first episode, I'm sorry, because it's interesting. So like when I got out of the screening on Monday night, I immediately opened up my Stitcher app and just did a term search for Clerks III and found a bunch of different episodes about it. Almost all of them were less than a half hour because they were trying to give spoiler-free reviews. And if you've made it this far in the show, you've either seen the movie or you don't care or whatever. Either way, you know the outcome of Clerks III. And, you know, if I were to do a spoiler-free episode, it would have sounded very similar to that. It's like, well, I can't really tell you about the movie, but other than, like, I really liked it, it really resonated with me, it really connected with me, I enjoyed the performances, and it made me cry. You've been listening to Mike Seibert Radio. Like and subscribe. You know, smash the like button and all that other nonsense that I say at the end. But anyway, no, I just wanted to do something more elaborate than that. But then also what I've discovered, the more spokes I add to the wheel. So like all the audio that you've listened to and all that, those are all ideas that have come to me as I go. I still don't quite take the preparation advice that I give to others. I'll just be recording with you and I'll be, oh, you know what? I should probably just drop that clip here, and then I'll go out of my way and get the clip and edit it and put it in and all that other stuff. I don't know. I just, I like the Kevin Smith mentality of like, well, this is for me, this is for my friends. And if the audience connects with it, terrific. If they don't, that's fine too. So if this is your first episode of Mike Seibert Radio, this is kind of what you get. You know, I talk about stuff and things that are on my mind, and sometimes that becomes really rambly and messy and authentic, which is again what I think is the word I would use to describe this current era of Kevin Smith, and that is certainly a word that I would use to describe Clerks III. It's authentic, and again, that's what I like about it. I feel myself going around in a circle. So I think I touched on everything. I was bummed that that Becky got fridged, but I didn't know what else they could have done with her. I again really liked Dante's performance, or Brian O'Halloran as Dante. I really appreciated that performance, and much like with the original Clerks movie, it's it doesn't necessarily end on a down note, but it's there is a certain degree of bittersweet to it, kind of in a Chasing Amy kind of way as well. I'm starting to feel myself tell stories about insights that I heard at the Q&A. So let me go back to my notes. Basically, the movie was about 2 hours long, and it was about 90 minutes of Q&A, and maybe like 4 people got up to ask questions. So one of the questions that was asked first of all, so like everybody that asked questions, and I think everybody in that crowd, Kevin Smith super fans. So I think even like the depth of the not the depth, but the questions that folks were asking were already deep cuts. So it wasn't folks asking surface level questions like, oh, why did you decide to kill Dante? It kind of went deeper than that, but like right out of the gate, the first question was about in a roundabout way saying, like, if you had the opportunity to make Clerks now, what would you do differently than the first time around? Kind of like having come full circle. And then Kevin kind of goes into this lengthy explanation about where he was when he was a younger person and then where he's at now. And that really the ending with killing off Dante was a promise to, he's been wanting to kill Dante off since the first movie. They've made jokes about it, and really, this is old Kevin Smith paying back young Kevin Smith for excising that scene from the first movie and finally paying that off. Kind of like, again, he gets really transactional about it. It's like, okay, well, I'll pay you back, and now he feels like that bill is coming due.
This Kevin Smith had a very clear vision of what he wanted. That was a movie that entailed fucking Dante getting killed at the end. That was his vision. And remember, that kid got us here. But this Kevin Smith stops existing, and that Kevin Smith starts existing the moment I decide to cut that ending for a better future. Fuck that kid's dreams. I was like, I'm so close to like this working, like this whole thing could like actually get picked up. This is the only thing standing between me and distribution is Dante getting killed. Like, oh my God, this is a no fucking brainer. And I cut that ending, and I've lived happily ever after since. And I never regret it, because fuck, if I didn't cut that ending, we don't get to Clerks 2 or Clerks 3, and they're two of my favorite films I've ever made. We could have gotten there if I killed Dante in the first one. If the movie was wildly popular and I killed Dante, I always figured my back pocket plan to do a sequel was number 2 would open with Randall standing over Dante's grave, reading from the Necronomicon. And then fucking Dante's hand would pop out of the ground, fucking Randall pull him out, dust him off, they go talk about Star Wars again. But I didn't have to do that because I cut the ending and shit. And I always wondered what this Kevin Smith would have thought about all that. It didn't matter because I was so desperate to become that Kevin Smith that seemed like the quickest, easiest fucking path. And it led to a lifetime of reward and happiness and fucking, oh my God, all the stupid adventures I've gone on and shit like that. But I often think about the kid that got me here, because he made one good decision and I've been living in the spoils of his one good decision for the rest of my fucking life. But, I took away the one fucking thing that kid dreamed about. Dreamed about fucking a story where he kills Dante at the end. So I figured after all this time, I owe that fucking kid. And, I was like, all right, if we'd killed him in the first movie, it wouldn't have meant anything. John Pearson was right. I didn't know how to end the fucking movie. Seemed like a good thing to do for an independent film. Every indie film I'd seen in the late 80s, early 90s, somebody pulled a fucking gun out sooner or later. So I was like, oh shit, we'll do that. Makes no sense in our world. It's where the movie goes inauthentic, because that never happened to me in a convenience store. I was never robbed or anything like that. I understand it does happen, but it never fucking happened to me. So cutting it was a no fucking brainer and shit, and I'm glad I did, and I have no regrets about it, but the least I could do for this fucking dude is like close the circle and shit. So somewhere in the streams of time that he's just like, all right, I got what I wanted. He got what he fucking wanted, and now he gets what he wanted as well. Does that fucking make sense?
But also in the movie itself, I did appreciate the amount of foreshadowing, because they do kind of telegraph what is going to happen to Dante. Like after Randall has his heart attack and Dante is talking to Amy Sedaris and talking about his diet and whatnot, and it's like, well, you're eating the same stuff. You might want to take a look at that. Otherwise, you might end up back here sooner than you think, or something like that. To where, I mean, it was telegraphing that, and then, I forgot there was. I want to say there was like at least 2 other foreshadowing instances of Dante dying and or having a heart attack. But Kevin also talked about this. He talked a lot about bookends and closing the loop, and how Clerks 3 was in a lot of ways an indie movie the same way that Clerks 1 was. Now, obviously, the financing and circumstances were very different. But I had mentioned authenticity earlier, and the movie was filmed completely in New Jersey at the original Quick Stop. Now, apparently in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and some of the other stuff, they've recreated the Quick Stop in Burbank, I think. But anyway, so they went back to the roots, back to the source, and filmed at the Quick Stop in New Jersey. And one of the things that I haven't talked about is this movie is populated almost entirely with folks that have returned back from the first movie, basically everybody that they could find. So like this, the one of the guys that went up for Q&A, said, well, hey, it was great seeing Bob Hawke in there. And so Kevin went on like this whole, story and explanation about who Bob Hawke was. And basically he was, two things. One, he's the guy that inspired the hand stuck in the Pringles can joke, but also more importantly, he was the guy who saw Clerks at a New Jersey screening where it was just basically Kevin Smith and the cast, and really had encouraged submitting the movie to Sundance and kind of putting it on the trajectory that the movie ended up being. But Kevin talked a lot about like the logistics of getting the original cast back and the authenticity of bringing back all of these old folks. Like, he explained the Lucille Ball joke with the video store lady. Apparently, back in the day when they did the original Clerks movie, the actress had asked, it's like, oh, well, hey, I could do a take as Lucy. And it's like, oh, no, we don't really need that. And she's like, well, I do this one woman show as Lucille Ball, and was really into it. So one of the things that was mentioned a number of times was that this was an opportunity to, not necessarily right wrongs, but like, to go back and really close things off, like, really explaining more thoroughly from a less racist perspective what an Asian design major is, and that kind of thing. So that's where like that I Love Lucy thing comes from, which seems kind of random in the movie, but when you hear Kevin explain it makes a little more sense. There was a bit where they kind of talked about the Veronica character and Marilyn Gigliotti, and he had said that so our show in Seattle at the Neptune was show number 16 of like 50 something. So, like a third of the way through, and Kevin watches the movie with the audience. And he had said that this was the first time that he had heard the audience when Veronica comes out and gets that sick burn on Dante, saying like, well, at least I have a family to go to. And that was the first time the crowd had booed that line reading. But he had also mentioned that he brought Marilyn in. She wanted to. She was interested in reprising as Veronica, but Kevin was saying that like he wasn't sure exactly how to use the scenes that he had written, and had kind of intended to cut that material out, which actually seems kind of shitty, thinking about it more. It seemed kind of sweet the way he told the story at the time, because there was Kevin Smith, the director, and Kevin Smith, the editor. So editor Kevin Smith is saying, yeah, this is going to go. But what had happened is, in all of her scenes, crushed it so hard that it changed his mind. He's like, you know what? I will find a place to put this in the movie. And I think it's little things like that I think ended up winning Kevin Smith, the editor, over. That's probably why the movie is closer to 2 hours as opposed to a tighter and brighter 90 minutes. I do think that this movie is a little long, and it's not just because I had a Jack and Coke and a Rainier Tallboy in my bladder just aching to get out. But no, I think I don't know. You'll have to come back to me after I watch it on Blu-ray when I do a reappraisal, because I think that would be something fun to do, is follow up on that. But anyway, all of the Veronica scenes almost got cut and didn't. Now, so Kevin Smith talks a lot about his dad. He was telling a story about how when they went to go watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, that was like one of the first times that they really bonded and saw that his dad was less no nonsense, and movies was something that they discovered that they could kind of bond on. But the thing that he said a couple different times during the Q&A was that that Clerks III is the tale of two heart attacks. The type of heart attack that Kevin Smith had, the Widowmaker, that he survived from, but then also the other heart attack that his dad didn't survive from. His dad died of a heart attack. So I'm sure all of that was in his mind when he was taking all this biographical stuff, breaking it down for parts, and weaving it into the fabric of his movies. So it's a tale of two heart attacks. Randall has Kevin Smith's heart attack, and Dante has his father's. So I thought that insight was particularly fascinating. Now, I had mentioned that I was going to share with you little bits of bootleg audio with you, and this little bit is Kevin Smith talking about how rare it is to survive the Widowmaker, and he sounds so genuinely grateful and thankful to be alive, and it's I think he tells it better than I describe here. So I'm actually going to play a little bit of this audio. Again, it sounds very rough because I recorded it on my cell phone from the upper balcony, just kind of holding it. So, and it's interesting. A weird thing about cell phone microphones, it's like whenever I say something, it is clear as a bell. So there's a lot of like weird crowd ambience, and obviously the volume level goes out of control when there's thunderous applause. I mean, it was a great crowd. I mean, we were all on our feet and clapping and whooping and hollering, and it was terrific. But like there was a oh my gosh. So like one of the folks asking a question had said something, well, when Kevin, when you made Clerks when you were 25, and Kevin very politely says 23. Oh yeah. Sorry, 23. And I leaned over to the dude sitting next to me. I don't know this guy, but we'd, talked a little bit before the movie, but I was like, yeah, throw him out. And you can hear that clear as day on the recording. So, somehow, I don't know if it's the directionality of me holding my phone or whatever. But anyway, here is Kevin Smith talking about how lucky he is to have survived the Widowmaker.
She was like, oh my God, look at you. Half the person you used to be. I haven't seen you since your big episode and shit. I was like, I know, it was crazy, man. She goes, well, you don't know how lucky you are. I was like, I've heard that for the last year and change. I know how lucky I am. She goes, no, you don't know how lucky you are because you got that Widowmaker. I was like, I know, it's 80-20, man. I was in that 20% chance. And she goes, no, it's even fucking worse than that. She goes, let me tell you the story. This will illustrate how lucky you are. She goes, me and 3 other cardiologists are working open heart on a patient. And we're in one of the best hospitals in the world. Suddenly, bam, Widowmaker. And I was like, all right, well, if the guy's a widowmaker on the table, at least you're all there. And she's like, not the patient, one of the doctors has a widowmaker and drops to the fucking ground in mid-surgery and shit. I was like, well, at least you guys were in the hospital, you had all the equipment. She's like, we did. We had all the equipment and 3 heart specialists right there, and we still couldn't save him. He dropped dead and he died on that floor. She's going, I love Mark Ladenheim. That's my cardiologist. She goes, I take nothing away from Mark. He's a genius. But the widowmaker has nothing to do with the doctor. It is really 80-20. She goes, you are so fucking lucky to be alive. Do you understand me? And I was like, I get you. So this is the movie, The Tale of Two Heart Attacks. It's the easy one, the one I skated through, and it's the one that my father didn't make it out of at age 67. He died screaming. I've talked about that, and I don't really care to talk about it anymore. It's tough enough every night to watch him die over and over again and stuff, but it's worth it because it's the most important part of the story.
You know, and then later on, he a fan came up and asked him, having told the story of Clerks 3 the way that he did, has his opinion on Jersey Girl changed, which I thought was kind of like a interesting way of going about it, but in a weird way. It's interesting because, like, in the first part of the podcast, I was kind of trying to quantify the sincerity and earnestness of Clerks 3 and comparing it to his other works, and I totally neglected to mention Jersey Girl, but like in a weird way, I almost think that Clerks 3 is of a kind with Jersey Girl in terms of like the weight of the subject matter and how it gets handled. And 2 for 2 on Dead Wives, by the way. I don't remember if that's my unique thought or if it's just popping into it now or if I remembered that from the Q&A, but maybe that's why I thought that that Rosario Dawson's Becky character wasn't going to make it out of that movie, because it seems that Kevin Smith has a thing for killing wives. I don't know. There's a weird pull quote, but anyway, he talked a lot about Jersey Girl, and it really makes me want to revisit the movie. I haven't watched it in a really long time, but one of the asides was he mentioned that that was the height of Bennifer, the whole Ben Affleck Jennifer Lopez craze, and it's interesting how things have just kind of come back around, and they seem to have found themselves again and found each other again, and they seem to be very happy. But it's kind of interesting, given all that time, that maybe it's time to give Jersey Girl another day in court. One of the things that cracked me up, and I remembered this from the reboot Roadshow. There's a nice lady. Her name is Liv. She's the tour manager. Lovely gal. But she comes out, introduces the movie, introduces Kevin Smith, and then she comes out and introduces him again for Q&A. But like, shortly after like the first question, she comes out, sits on a chair on like the far side of the stage, kind of sort of out of sight, but not really, because of the way the stage is set up. But as Q&A is going, she holds up a series of placards, and this starts with question the first. So I don't know exactly what the expectation of time for the Q&A is, but like partway through the first question, she holds up a sign that says 10 minutes left. Then holds up a sign that says 5 minutes left. And another sign that says time is up. And then 5 minutes over, 10 minutes over, 20 minutes over, and then after the 20 minutes over mark, she holds up a sign that says, "Please stop talking." And so that's the sign that she holds. But anyway, so Kevin is talking about all this towards the end, where we're all kind of tapping our watches. Like, folks have actually started to leave. Like I don't know if like people had to work in the morning or what. Not everybody works in the afternoon like me, I suppose. But anyway, so they were calling attention to it, very meta. But then Kevin asked her to show what the final sign is, and she flips it over, and all it is like just a giant crying face emoji, and talking about, that's the DEFCON 1, when the unions start getting mad about keeping the venue open and things like that. By the time our session got done, she did not bring out the final crying face emoji sign. But the final placard that she held up said 45 minutes over. So again, I can't do the math right here. So I guess they're planning for approximately 45 minutes of Q&A, but then still allow for about 90 minutes. And I would imagine that perhaps like the 2 hours is the final cutoff. Now he, as I've talked about pretty extensively here, I've seen this performance before, and the thing that I think is interesting is the same material. Again, when I was talking to Thunder, Camaro Kev, I was kind of comparing the way Kevin Smith was doing the show to like a stand-up comedy routine, to where, it's, you have your certain hits, the certain jokes that you tell at every show. And he closes out the night telling this lovely story about his interactions with George Carlin and how like the friendship that they had, and that his ended up his favorite role for acting was as the blowjob truck driver, or the blowjob hitchhiker from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And he tells the story. I've personally heard it twice in the same spot as a closer, and I get the feeling I would have to compare notes with other folks that have seen his road shows, and I wonder if he just tells that same story to close out the night, which again is a lovely story, and it's terrific. He talks about how George Carlin wrote like an 18-page backstory for his hitchhiker character, and what was the other component of that? So Carlin had asked, it's like, well, if you put me in another movie, this was during his Jersey Girl story. If you put me in another movie, cast me as a priest that strangles 6 children. And Kevin Smith never got around to that. So, he says kind of like with a easy laugh. But the going a little bit out of order, the clip I want to close with, and I had actually written this down because I was going to read it and paraphrase it, but like he earlier, before the George Carlin story, he talks about the lessons from the movie, kind of the lessons from Clerks III, and there's a lot that he said that resonates with me, like in terms of like, one of the things that I appreciate and respect about Kevin Smith is as self-indulgent as his work is, he is equally empowering to creatives. His whole thing is, go do your thing. Why haven't you done your thing yet? I've heard that so many times. Like I think even pre-heart attack, his attitude was chase whimsy. Find a thing that you're passionate about and go do it. And now the other component of his philosophy that I personally have only, no, I'm sorry. I'm litigating this in real time. I was going to say, let me start over. Chase whimsy, find the thing that you are passionate about and go do it, and then hopefully find a way to make money at it, which, he is in the business of being Kevin Smith. And the thing that I stumbled on and made me stop, and why I'm not going to edit any of that out, because I realized in real time that I sometimes have difficulty reconciling the two halves of radio and podcasting. Like I'm doing this podcast as a hobby for fun, because I like editing audio, and I like putting in audio clips, and I like talking about what I'm passionate about. But I've also found a way to make money, not as an independent podcaster, but working at a radio station. So I've realized just now here talking to you in real time that I've actually kind of done the thing. I've done more of the Kevin Smith philosophy than I even realized, because like another thing that didn't. It's funny, I'm doing this whole existential dreadcast with you now, because like one of the other things that was going to be going into it was my reluctance to monetize. I have friends that have successful Patreons, and I'll confess I have a little bit of FOMO. It's not necessarily jealousy, but then that's where the imposter syndrome comes in. It's like, I don't do anything of value that anybody wants to throw money down for, and I know that's wrong-headed thinking, and I know that that's false, but there's also a part of me that also thinks that, like, as soon as I monetize, that makes it a job. It's like, and now I feel like I would owe folks, and I think the transactional nature is, I think, something that I'm deathly afraid of. Conversely, though, I really like what my friends have done with their Patreons, like my buddy Anthony Brucali, tfu.info. He's recently launched a Patreon exclusive podcast where he unboxes toys, and it's given him an outlet to talk about what's happening now in his collection, as opposed to News and Views, where he's talking about the future, or Transformers University, where he's talking about the past. It gives him an opportunity to live in the now. It's called Seven Figures. He unboxes seven figures and talks about them. I love it. I think it's a terrific idea, and I think it's an awesome way for him to use that platform. And it got me to up my patronage so that I could specifically enjoy that. So I think that's awesome. So I think where I struggle, because look how often I put out content now, just regular, like, mainline episodes. I talked to Jim Sorensen, a month ago? Oh my God, it was over a month ago. I talked to him on August 20th. It is past the 20th of September, so it has been over a month. And I have trouble finding the time. I have trouble finding the motivation, and I get tired. I feel I don't have, like, I don't know, the stamina or whatever, but like, I get off work and I'm tired, and it's hard for me to rally and muster and find the energy to keep going. I mean, like I told you, this is my fourth attempt trying to do these wraparounds, and now that I'm going, I can't be stopped, I guess. But because again, I was going to do Existential Dreadcast as like a separate thing, and I'm like, no, I've come to terms with that material. I don't need to talk about it now, and here it is. It's all just coming out, and all of this is staying in. But it's just man, it just I think there are times where I think I am tired of doing podcasting, but that's not that's not true. That's not accurate, because like when my buddies from Autopod Decepticast asked me if I wanted to be on their panel talking about the Beyond Your Wildest Imagination TF Nation panel, talking about the Ron Friedman original draft of Transformers the movie, I got up at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning and hung around with those dudes for 4.5 hours. So, I mean, I love talking into a microphone, but like finding ways to do my own content, it's like that time management has just got me down. And like when you're in the muck, it's so hard to drag yourself out of it. And I don't know if maybe I just had a good lunch, or those Zip Fizz B vitamins are hitting just right. But like, I did not feel like this yesterday. I was in the muck, in a funk, and I couldn't string a sentence together. But anyway, that's wow. I went really, really off track. But I want to share with you this little bit of a clip, and I'm going to try to edit out some of the spiking crowd noises as best as I can, kind of clean it up. But like, you know, he talks about being empowered as a creative person, and how one of the lessons from Clerks III is that it is a reminder to get going on your creative pursuits. So give a listen.
Y'all have something that you want to do. Y'all have your quirks or inconvenience and shit like that. And I don't mean necessarily just a movie. I just mean, you know, we've been around long enough. They have dreams that you haven't fucking accomplished yet. I know this to be true because I've done a bunch of weird shit, and there's still a bunch of shit that I've yet to accomplish, and I doubt I will before this life is over. And I always go like, well, fucking, I'm gonna get to it. I'm just doing this thing right now. That's what happens. Life gets in the way, and life is important. Don't forget. Like, that's why we're all fucking here. Having families, having fucking friends and stuff. All the things that get in the way of us pursuing our dreams, and the dreams of our youth that we put down to attain adulthood and stuff. We all say the same thing. I'm gonna get around to it. I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get back to it. It's just, I mean, one day I'm gonna ... This movie is a very polite reminder. Hurry the fuck up, kids. This time is fucking running out. Particularly for those of us who are near my age and shit like that. The other thing I wanted to impart in this movie, and I think is painfully clear, is like, never let the sun go down in an argument. That's the most tragic thing about the movie to me, the thing that breaks my heart every night. Dante and Randall's entire relationship is predicated on conversation, the art of conversation. It's what put color into their lives. They hated their real lives, and they talked their way out of it and stuff. It was a lecture. It's why you kept coming to Clerks Adventures. That's the only thing that they were good at in life, in the movies, and fucking in the movie itself as you watch it. The last conversation that they ever had is the worst conversation that they ever had, and that's it. And they don't get a do-over. Now, you can say, well, Randall goes in and shows him a whole ass movie and shit like that. He talks to him. Yeah, he talks to him. That is not a fucking conversation. That is a one-sided kind of affair and stuff. That's what you do when people die, and you're full of regret and say, I should have, and I wish, and blah, blah, blah. So the two characters who spent their whole lives defining one another with conversation end that relationship with a terrible fucking conversation. And that happens all the fucking time, kids. Never let the sun go down in an argument. Don't matter how fucking mad you are and shit. You don't know that you get another chance to make it right. You don't get time, you know, and the older we get, time becomes more fucking precious and shit. So those are the two things I wanted to impart in the movie. Hopefully y'all take that home with you. But I just realized right now, you never had a question mark anywhere. You didn't even ask me a question.
All right, and I think with that will wrap things up for this extra triple double bonus length episode. Thank you so much for listening and for hanging out with me. And if you want to listen to all of my past episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, or whatever the hell you listen to your podcasts on. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let me know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. My name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio. And until next time, till all are one, make good choices. Mike Seibert Radio is recorded in Seattle, Washington. Our original theme song is written and performed by Lucia Fasano. Get her music on all streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, including her groovy new single, Habitable Planets. Check out her Instagram at Lucia_Fasano. Our closing theme is A Nice Place to Visit by These Young Fools, used with permission from Michael Geissler. Check out Michael's website, bytormusic.com. Special thanks to Andy Lita for our logos and graphic design. He is at GoGoAndyRobo out on Twitter. Become a Mike Cybertronian and join the MSRP Friends and Fans Facebook group. And you can follow me on social media at Mike Seibert Radio on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Want to be a guest on the show? Send me an email, MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com.